Hi everyone, welcome to the first in a series of music theory videos. My first attempt at this several years ago was way too ambitious, aiming for much higher production values than my skill allowed for. So this is take two, and this time the idea is to err on the side of simplicity, making simple videos that can be recorded and edited within a few days. So subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, the usual stuff. Now, let's talk about intervals. First of all, let's recap what all the available notes are. On a guitar, we can start by finding a C note and then just moving up the fretboard one fret at a time. For instance, we can start on the first fret of the B string. On a piano, we start on the C note and then play each white and black key. The distance between each pair of adjacent notes is called a half step. For instance, the distance between a C and a C sharp, or between an E and an F. We can talk about the distance between any two notes in terms of number of half steps. For instance, between C and E, there are 4 half steps, and between E and B, there are 7 half steps. As you can see, when two notes are far apart, referring to them in terms of half steps becomes pretty clumsy, and it also doesn't convey much musical information. That's why we have names for all these different intervals. The names help categorizing the intervals, understanding how they fit in with scales and keys, and I also find that it speeds up the process of learning to identify intervals by ear when listening to music and being able to quickly reproduce a song's melody or chords on an instrument. Let's go through them one by one. The first and smallest interval is one of 0 half steps. That's called perfect unison. It's just 2 identical notes played one after the other, like this. It is a bit weird to think of no distance as an interval, especially when the notes are played in sequence. It makes more sense when the notes are played simultaneously or sung in harmony. The next interval consists of a half step and is known as a minor second. It often helps to use a familiar melody to remember what the interval sounds like. For instance, the minor second could be the theme from Jaws. The next interval is called a major second. Here, we might think of the 2 opening notes of Brother John. Much like there's both a minor and a major second, there are also 2 intervals that are called a third, and the first one is the minor third. A riff that comes to mind here is Smoke on the Water. 1 half step up from that, we have the major third. Here, we can think of When the Saints Go Marching In. Next up is the perfect fourth. Amazing Grace would be one example. Or Here Comes the Bride. The next interval is called a tritone, also known as the Devil's Interval, and there's a popular urban legend that claims that it was avoided or even outlawed in classical music because of its dissonance. In modern times, Black Sabbath would pioneer its use for creepy effect on the title track of their eponymous debut album. And then we have the perfect fifth, which can be thought of as the first 2 notes of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Beyond the perfect fifth, it gets harder to think of melodies that start with those intervals, so let's just push through with the next 4. Minor sixth, major sixth, minor seventh, major seventh. And finally, the octave, which is actually the 2 opening notes of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Now that we've become familiar with the names of all the intervals, let's see how they can be useful in practice. Again, intervals are such a fundamental part of music, of chords, scales, melodies, that they don't really do anything by themselves, but if you don't know their names, it becomes really tricky to talk about any of those things. So, to illustrate, I'm going to talk a bit about chords and scales, and just imagine what it would be like to listen to if each interval name was substituted for something like 9 half steps. The first example is about the difference between a major and a minor chord. First, let's have a look at a C major chord. It consists of the following notes. So what are the intervals? First, there's C, which is the root note. Then we have an E, which is the major third. Finally, there's A G, which is the perfect fifth, played together sounds like this. Now, how about a C minor chord? It consists of the following notes. Turns out it also contains the root, C, and the perfect fifth, G, and the only difference is that the major third is flattened to a minor third, D sharp, or E flat, instead of E. Which sort of makes sense, right? Major chords contain major thirds, and minor chords contain minor ones. Again, the C major chord sounds like this. And the C minor chord sounds like this. So, now we can say that triad chords, which are chords consisting of 3 notes, as opposed to, say, 7 chords, which consist of 4 notes, consist of a root, a third, and a fifth. And if it's a major chord, then the third is a major third, and if it's a minor chord, then the third is a minor third. And to me, that makes a ton more sense than talking about chords containing an interval of either 3 or 4 half steps. Okay, I think that's enough for this time. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you'd like to have clarified or expanded on, and stay tuned for the next video.